It's great to be invited to something, isn't it? Like whether it's an invite to hang with a friend, play Xbox after school, go shopping, sit with someone at lunch, or attend someone's graduation, or go to a party, all of us appreciate it when someone else makes the effort to invite us to something. Now, for all of the invitations in life that you've said yes to, let me ask you this. What made you say yes? Like, what made you decide that this was something you wanted to attend? Well, there are probably a bunch of potential reasons. Like maybe you said yes because you thought you would enjoy going. You thought that you might actually have a good time. Or maybe you said yes out of guilt. Like you didn't really want to go, but you felt so bad saying no that you said yes anyway. You assumed that you would have a terrible time and spend the entire time checking your phone and counting the minutes until you left. But despite all that, you still couldn't bring yourself to say no. Or maybe you said yes to an invitation because you were simply curious. Like whether it was a new restaurant, a new movie, or something that you've always wanted to try, you were just genuinely interested in what would happen. There are probably a dozen other reasons why you've said yes to an invitation, but I think the most common reason we say yes to an invitation is because of who asked us. Like there are people in your life, people at school, people on your team, who could invite you to the most amazing concert and you'd still be like, let me check my schedule, or sorry, I'd rather do homework. But there are also people you love hanging out with, or you'd love to start hanging out with, and if they asked you to watch paint dry, you'd be like, sounds great, what time? All of us know that when it comes to an invitation, the who can be far more important than the what. This idea is important because as Christians, we are encouraged to invite people all the time. We're told to invite people to church, to youth group, to camp, and to invite people into a relationship with Jesus. But when it comes to inviting other people to move closer to Jesus, not everyone feels excited about the idea. Don't get me wrong, some people love it, like they can't wait to talk about Jesus with anyone who will listen. They're completely bold when it comes to extending invitations for others to follow him. For others of us, for most of us, it makes us literally sick to think about it. Like most of us would rather do anything else. We're afraid that we won't know what to say, won't have all the answers, or won't know what to do if we end up in a conversation about faith. After all, we all probably know the person who talks about their faith and makes it awkward for everybody. We don't want to be that person. Plus, there's the issue of how to even begin the conversation. If you have any of those fears, it's totally valid and totally normal. I want you to know that. There are definitely some ways to extend an invitation that are better than others. And you may not know this, but Christians have literally tried everything to invite other people to get to know Jesus. We've bought billboards and put bumper stickers on our cars. We've made brochures called tracts that explain people's need for Jesus and handed them out to strangers. We've put invitations on shoes, bracelets, breath mints, fake $100 bills, and almost anything else you can imagine. And although our intentions were good, because we simply wanted other people to get closer to Jesus, it doesn't mean our methods were always effective. And yes, sometimes those methods can work, but sometimes they can also scare people away from faith. And that's why today I want to talk about a better way. A less awkward, less scary, more effective way to share your faith. And it goes like this. If we want people to say yes to an invitation to follow Jesus, then we need to be the type of people that others will say yes to. Like we said earlier, oftentimes the reason why we say yes to an invitation is because of who asked us. The person who asked you is the type of person you want to say yes to. And I want to be the type of person that others are more likely to say yes to when I invite them to chase after Jesus. And I want that for you too. To talk more about that, I want to look at an account from the Gospel of John. John was a guy who literally walked with Jesus and followed him around, and years later he decided to write down everything he remembered from that time. If you read the Gospels, not just John's, but the others as well, you'll see a phrase that comes up over and over again. When people try to describe how great Jesus was, like how amazing his teachings were or how incredible his actions were, they found themselves struggling to explain it well. So they ended up simply saying this: come and see, meaning I can't tell you everything you need to know, and I don't have answers to all of your questions. You're just gonna have to come check him out for yourself. The people who loved Jesus were constantly extending invitations to others because of what they had experienced. And we're gonna look at a time John remembers that Jesus had been inviting specific people to follow him, and be his disciples. And one of those people was Philip. Jesus invited Philip to follow him. And once Philip experienced Jesus, he started inviting others to follow Jesus as well. And in this passage we're about to look at, we see exactly how Philip chose to invite his friend Nathanael to follow Jesus. Check it out. Philip found Nathanael and told him, "We have found the one Moses wrote about in the law, and about whom the prophets also wrote, Jesus of Nazareth, the son of Joseph." Nazareth? Can anything good come from there? Nathanael asked. "Come and see," said Philip. In other words, Philip wasn't able to explain everything he had seen or heard. So instead, he simply invited Nathanael to see for himself, because Philip knew something. When it comes to Jesus, experiencing is more effective than explaining. And being in his presence that was simply unexplainable. Others just had to come and see it for themselves. So you know what Nathanael does? He says yes. Philip extends an invitation, and without knowing much about Jesus at all, Nathanael decides to follow along. Why? Why did Nathanael decide to go and see Jesus when all he knew about Jesus is what Philip told him? I think a lot of it had to do with the kind of person Philip was. Nathanael may not have known Jesus yet, but he knew and trusted Philip. So he followed along. And when it comes to how we offer invitations to others to follow, who we are and how we treat the people we're inviting, it all matters. See, Philip didn't put up a clever billboard to give Nathanael a fake dollar bill with a sermon on the back. He didn't stand on a corner with a megaphone and try to catch Nathanael's attention. No, Philip was a friend that Nathanael could trust. So when Philip told him to come and see, he did just that. In other words, the best way to influence others to say yes to your invitations to chase after Jesus is to live in a way that other people want to chase what you're chasing. Like, do people see your life and think, I would like to be more like that? Are you considered trustworthy by the people closest to you? Are you the kind of person younger people look up to? Do you treat people so well that they feel better just hanging around you? Do you look out for people? Do you treat people with respect even when they don't respect you? Those are the sorts of things that make people curious why you're different. In the most famous sermon Jesus ever preached, in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus said that you and I are the salt of the earth. In other words, our lives should operate like salt. And how does salt work? It flavors things, it preserves things, and it makes things taste better. You know what makes Doritos delicious? Among other things, salt. The secret ingredient in chocolate chip cookies? No kidding, they're better with a sprinkle of salt. Even just a tiny bit of salt makes nearly everything better. And Jesus is saying the same is true for you. The world around you should be better and more enjoyable because you are there. Your family should be more enjoyable because you're in it. Your school and neighborhood should be better places because you're there. Your friends should be better people because you're in their life. If you're a Christian, every environment you're in should be better, more seasoned and flavored, more enjoyable, simply because you're there. Why? Because you carry the Spirit of Jesus with you, and He makes you better. And you make the world around you better. That's how it works. Not only that, but there should also be a noticeable absence when you aren't there. Just like some people notice if there isn't enough salt on their fries because it tastes bland, there should be a noticeable difference if Christians aren't around. Culture should be saying all the time, man, I wish the Christians were here. Everything is better when Jesus followers are around. And maybe that sounds kind of ridiculous, but this is what Jesus was talking about when he said that we are to be the salt of the earth. It's what Jesus did in the environments that he was in. He brought life to the people around him. He made things better. Even the tax collectors and sinners and bad guys loved having Jesus around. People who were nothing like Jesus liked Jesus because of how he treated them. And we should be the same way. I'm telling you, if we want to be people who get a yes response when we invite people to church or to small group or to chasing Jesus, we have to be the kind of likable people others want to say yes to. Also, followers of Jesus should be the first people others think of when they're in need. Like when people are in a crisis and need help and comfort, people need to know that we will come alongside of them and offer encouragement and hope and grace. In order to invite others to follow Jesus, we have a responsibility to live in a way that makes Jesus look like he's worth following. In other words, if we want to invite others to a life with Jesus, we have to actually live like Jesus. That's what makes us credible. That's what makes us reliable. That's what makes us trustworthy. Put simply, Christians should literally be the best helpers. We should be the ones our friends call and hear us say things like, hey, let me share with you what I've learned about forgiveness, or this is what I've discovered about accepting myself. This is what Jesus has taught me through some mistakes I've made. Being this type of person shows others what Jesus is like. So when we extend an invitation to follow him, other people will understand what we mean. Hopefully people will trust us because they'll grow to trust what we say about Jesus. Like they've seen us chase Jesus for a while and they understand what joining that kind of chase looks like. And listen, I get it. Sharing your faith and inviting others into this part of your life, it can be scary for sure, but it is so important, and here's why. Chasing Jesus means sharing him with them. Like that's part of the deal. Chasing Jesus means sharing him with them. Part of growing our own faith is living in a way that invites others into the story. And sharing Jesus with others, it starts by being likable and credible. It starts by caring about other people and treating them like Jesus would. And when we chase him in this way, sharing, it becomes easier. It's something people around us are naturally curious about. And when we invite other people to come and see, they're more likely to say yes because they've seen what chasing Jesus looks like for us. You guys, can you imagine? Can you imagine if the reputation of Christians in our culture was that we really are the most likable and credible people around? That we bring joy and hope to the people around us? What kind of influence would we have? I think if we lived this way, people wouldn't be able to not notice. They would pay attention. They'd lean in and ask, why is your life this way? And in those moments when they ask why, it'll be so much easier to share Jesus with them because they've seen us live it day after day. So guys, go live it. Go live it. Because chasing Jesus means sharing him with them.